I'm joined now by the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Mel Stride. Mel Stride, we'll come on to the leadership elections in a moment, but first of all, your reflections on Alex Salmond, who you must have known.
Yes, I knew Alex a little bit, a very congenial man, a man who was good to have a chat with and to be around, and of course a very consequential politician. I mean, I think in 2011 to have got that full majority at Holyrood, to have taken it on to the referendum in 2014, and whilst I fundamentally disagree what he stood for, nonetheless they were very significant challenges. So a very big figure that has departed the stage yesterday, and my thoughts are with Moira, his friends and family.
Thank you. We'll come on to talk about the budget in a moment, but I just want to ask you about something that we learnt from, I think, the Business and Trade Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, this morning. It sounded, from the interview I did with him, as though the Chancellor is at least actively considering, if not decided, to raise employers' national insurance. She hasn't got many options, has she?
Well, they boxed themselves in by going into the general election claiming they were not going to be a party that was going to have to put up taxes, and therefore saying that they would not put up all sorts of different taxes, broadly based taxes that account for about 75% of all the taxes raised. So that leaves you with a narrow field of taxes now to go for. I think if they go for employers' national insurance, firstly, it's a very bad tax to raise because it's a tax on jobs, and what they should be about is growth and increasing productivity in the economy. The second thing is I think it goes totally counter to their manifesto that assured us they would not be putting up national insurance. So unless they're to argue that employers' national insurance is not the same thing as national insurance, which is an absurdity to argue, then they're going to be breaching their manifesto commitment.
To be fair, they say that their pledge is about employees' national insurance, and you can make the case that they come out of the same pot, but technically speaking, they are separate.
But in their manifesto, which is the point that I'm making, they clearly say they will not raise national insurance. That is the expression they use. Now, unless they are to argue that employers' national insurance is somehow not national insurance, which would be an absurdity, then if they do this, they will be breaking a manifesto commitment.
Are you worried about capital gains tax, by the way?
Yes, I am. I think it's one of those taxes, actually, if you raise it too much, and it's applied, as we know, to assets like property and shares and so on, you can actually get less money, and I think that's what the Treasury is telling them, certainly if you get up to the later 30s or thereabouts in terms of the rise. And it's once again one of those taxes which will slow down economic growth. It's a tax on assets, it's a tax on wealth creation. And that's exactly the kind of thing that the government should not be doing. Now, can I make one other point, Trevor, which is, of course, the government has made it very hard for themselves because in their rush to give them cover to raise all these taxes, of course, they've concocted this fictitious black hole. They've talked doom and gloom. They've talked the economy down at a time when they should be talking it up. And what we're seeing now, indeed, is increases in, for example, at the 10-year gilt market end of things, rates beginning to
which will make governments borrowing harder, more expensive, rather.
But you don't help that by talking the economy down. And they're doing that for political reasons, but it's hurting real people up and down the country.
OK, I've given you a free hit at them, but let's... people are talking this week about the likely Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride. Now, if the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride wouldn't be talking about raising taxes or more borrowing or whatever it is, what would the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride be recommending?
Well,
more cuts?
Well, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride is not in my gift. That's for others to consider. But look, what we've got to do is to get growth and productivity up in this economy. We've got to get back to the kind of trend growth and productivity we had back before the financial crisis. Now, part of the way we do that is welfare reform. So when I was Secretary of State at Work and Pensions, as we went into the general election, had found savings of about £12 billion. That was actually, when we talk about national insurance, going to help reduce employee national insurance. That's a pledge we had in our manifesto. We need fundamental supply-side reforms around house building, around infrastructure, around getting energy costs down, and we need to boost investment, both public and private, which is an issue of tax amongst other measures. So if you can get the productivity going, if we had the same productivity, Trevor, very quickly, as France, Germany, the United States, our economy would be about 18% bigger
All right.
than it is now. So the prize is
we
enormous.
we have
a plan for that.
We'll have this discussion another time, but for you to actually have any capacity to do any of this, you've got to have take the first step and get the right leader. You supported James cleverly last week. What went wrong?
In terms of the final outcome of that last round of the election, it's a secret ballot, so we will never know precisely what happens. But it does seem to me that at the very least, a number of individual MPs decided that they would play games, that they would try and engineer the final two that they wanted to see, rather than focusing on the person that they actually wanted ultimately to be leader. And I think it does expose questions about whether that is the right electoral process for the party in the future. I think we respect this result because that was the system we had. But I think going forward, I think we do need to look at this, actually, because I think in many ways what has happened was unsatisfactory.
Meaning you would restrict the franchise to MPs, or you would open it wider? So
I think that I'm not referring there actually to the interplay between the members and their role and the MPs and their role. It's more about the MPs' electoral process. Okay. And I think some people might say, well, it shouldn't be a secret ballot, so we know what everybody votes. Others might say, well, it shouldn't be a series of knockout rounds. Okay. It should be one round under a single transferable vote system. I'm not advocating any solution. But I am saying I think there's a conversation to be had. All
right. Well, look, you do realise this makes the Conservative Party look a bit like it couldn't organise its way out of a paper bag. But let's just ask...
Let's ask that question in a year's time when we've got our fantastic new leader. We've united the party and we're taking it to Labour and we're showing the country a bit. OK,
let me just ask you directly, who are you backing?
So I've not decided at this stage.
You haven't decided between them, or you're not just going to tell me? Or you're just not going to
Well, I may or may not go public when I do decide, but at the moment I'm still considering the two candidates.
Mr Jenrick says that anybody in the shadow cabinet is going to have to sign up to the withdrawal from the European Convention on Human Rights. If he wins and he asks you to join his team, will you sign this loyalty oath?
Well, look, these are hypotheticals, and we'll have to see what happens if and when we get to that particular point. But, sitting here, it's not something I can take a decision on at the moment.
Oh, I'm taking that as Mr Jenrick can't expect you to...
Well, take it as you like, Trevor. There we are. You've had a straight answer to your straight question anyway.
Mel Stride, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.